Now, it was interesting to me that, so you were discussing, a lot of the book talks about a little bit about framing. So it's not just about finding people who can make good forecasts, but it's also a lot about, finding the right questions, finding the right way to frame the problem, breaking down a big problem into smaller little clusters. I mean, there's so much that goes into forecasting other than the actual forecast that comes out of it. And I wonder that are people thinking enough about those things as well, in addition to finding people who give good forecasts?
I see that as one of the big objectives of the next generation of forecasting tournaments, to focus on generating not just good answers, but good questions. In the book, we talk about the parable of Tom Friedman and Bill Flack. Tom Friedman is, of course, a famous New York Times columnist, Pulitzer Prize winner, who is a regular at Davos in the White House and circulates in networks of power. Bill Flack is an anonymous retired hydrologist in Nebraska who also is a super forecaster. And we know a huge amount about Bill Flack's forecasting track record because he answered a very large number of questions in the course of the tournament and demonstrated he could do so effectively. But we know virtually nothing about Tom Friedman's forecasting track record, notwithstanding that he's written a great deal over the last 35 years, and he's a powerful analyst and a writer, and he does many things very well. But there's no way really to reconstruct with any degree of certainty, reasonable certainty, how good a forecaster he is. And Tom Friedman has detractors. He has admirers. His admirers might say, well, he was right about that it was a bad idea to expand NATO eastward because it would provoke nationalist backlash in Russia, or he was wrong about Iraq because he supported the 2003 invasion. People have a lot of opinions about those things. Now, here's what when we did a careful analysis of Tom Friedman's columns, and one of the things we noticed is, even though it's very difficult to discern whether or not he's a good forecaster, going back after the fact, it is possible to detect some really good questions. He's a pretty darn good question generator, and we've actually begun to insert some of his ideas for questions. They tend to be rather open-ended. We've managed to translate some of them into future forecasting tournaments. So let me give you an example from the past that illustrates the tension between being a super question generator and a super forecaster. So in late 2002, early 2003, before the Iraq invasion, Tom Friedman wrote what I thought was a really quite brilliant column on Iraq, in which he posed the following question, which really cut to the essence of a key issue in deciding whether to go into Iraq. He asked, is Iraq the way it is today because Saddam Hussein is the way he is, or is Saddam Hussein the way he is because Iraq is the way it is? The chicken and the egg. And what would happen if you took away Saddam Hussein? Would the country disintegrate into a war of all against all, or would it move toward, would it become a Jeffersonian liberal democracy in the next 15 or 20 years? Now, maybe not quite that fast, but in that direction, things would move in that move in that direction. So Tom Friedman didn't know the answer to that question. Many people think he made a big mistake in supporting the invasion of Iraq in 2003. But he was shrewd enough to pose the right question. And if we'd been running forecasting tournaments in late 2002, early 2003, that would have been something we would have wanted very much to include in that exercise. So I think the right way to think about Tom Friedman and Bill Flack is that they're complementary, and that Tom Friedman's greatest contribution to forecasting tournaments may well be his perspicacity in generating incisive questions. He may be a good forecaster too, but we just don't know that yet.
Right, but good forecasting, we need the Tom Friedmans in the world and the Bill Flacks. So to me, it would seem it's just a question of trying to get them together in the right ways and the right permutations to get better predictions.
That's where we come around in the book. It's not really Tom versus Bill, it's Tom and Bill. It should be symbiotic.
you.